Now, President Bola Tinubu on Friday presented Nigeria's highest ever budget to a joint session of the National Assembly tagged Consolidation, Renewed Resilience and Shared Prosperity. The 2026 Appropriation Bill estimates total expenditure at 58.18 trillion naira with a crude oil benchmark of $64.85 per barrel, production of 1.84 million barrels per day, and an exchange rate of 1,400 to the US dollar.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished members, our 2025 budget implementation faced the reality of a transition and competing execution demands. As of the third quarter, 18.6 trillion naira in revenue, representing 61% of our target. That's poor. And 24.66 trillion naira in expenditure, representing 60% of our target. Following the extension of the 2024 capital budget execution, the December 2025, a total of 2.23 trillion naira was released for implementation of the 2024 projects as of June 2025. While physical challenges persisted, the government met its key obligations. All key obligations are met. However, only 3.10 trillion naira, about 17% of 2025 capital budget, was released as of the third quarter, reflecting the emphasis on completing priority projects. All the 2024 capital projects during the transition period.
Now, joining us via Zoom to discuss on the budget story is Oludamilola Onimano, a senior research analyst. Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's jump right in. Now, this budget is based on oil at $64.85 US dollar per barrel and also production of 1.84 million barrels per day. Now, in recent years, Nigeria has struggled to consistently meet production target. What happens to this budget if oil output falls below that level?
All right, thank you so much for that question. So with the 64 barrel per day for the 2026, in 2025 they have proposed a 75 oil barrel per day. It just basically shows us that at the end of the day, Nigeria has very little control over how much they sell in terms of oil, right? And when it comes to how it impacts on us, we can see it coming out in the MTF that was just released, how revenue projections were not met by a lot, right? So despite that, President had made mention of us meeting a 61% in revenue. That was about 18.6 trillion in revenue for 2025. The MTF itself reported only 10 trillion in revenue, which goes to show that, first of all, is oil, which we are much more dependent on, we are not producing enough as to meet it, which is why our production is also reducing. The production projection as of last year was 2.06 million barrels per day. Now it is at a 1.84. This is something that on an annual basis should progress. This is something that on an annual basis should be increasing every single time. But then we're finding a regress in the numbers. So basically your oil projections, your oil projections in terms of prices, in terms of the revenue projections, in terms of the production itself always affects what you get in total revenue. And this has been seen clearly in what has happened in 2025. We are not able to fully meet our revenue targets in the annual year, and it will continuously be a trend in further years, because we're finding years where we don't even meet up to 70% or highest, even 80% of our revenue projections. And other areas suffers, areas like our capital budget suffers. That's why we see that we are concurrently running 2024, 2025, and then now we'll be running 2026 capital budget, because we do not have enough revenue within the year to be able to pursue all of those things.
Now, another question on the lips of Nigerians is concerning the exchange rate, and the exchange rate assumption is 1,400 naira to the dollar. And Nigerians are used to, the wide swings in the FX market. So how important is exchange rate stability to making this budget work?
So I believe it's a lot important, because as much as we try to think of our economy as oil dependent, we are still dependent on a whole lot of other sectors, right? Manufacturing, mining, whatnot, right? And all of these sectors are import intensive, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's agriculture, whether it's in the creative sector. It is very import dependent. And these raw materials, these goods and services that are import dependent would rely solely on the exchange rate. The higher the exchange rate, the more expensive they are, the more expensive production cost becomes, right? So contributing to the nation as a whole, the healthier the naira, the better each sector can bloom, the better the economy can grow. Yes, so the projection for, I think the projection for GDP growth is at a 4.28%. But however, it's all falls down to all the macroeconomic indicators. What is the exchange rate going to be? Yes, they've said it's 1,400, but is it realistic? Is it something that is achievable? We'll say within the year, we'll patch the naira fall down to 1,460, 1,480. It's something that can be achieved, but the measures to which they would achieve this have not fully been outlined.
And looking at the spending and earnings of the government. Now, the government said they plan to spend 58.18 trillion naira, but expect to earn only 34.33 trillion naira. That is leaving a 23.85 trillion naira deficit. So is this gap too large for the economy to carry?
Okay, so especially given what was recorded as achieved within the year, it's too large a gap, because if we're being realistic, you should plan based off of the amount you have earned, right? If they say they earned an 18 trillion within the year, why not let's be credible enough, let's be disciplined enough in our fiscal outlines to plan towards what we have achieved. So Nigeria has never done above a 20 trillion revenue. Why not let's plan our budget to fit that size, right? Why not let's plan our budget to fit within maybe 30 or 40 trillion? But when we keep going above, our deficit keeps increasing, which brings about more borrowing, which brings about more debt servicing. Our debt servicing is going up to 15.52 trillion, which is up from the 13.43 that we had recorded or was projected for last year. This is collecting the huge sum of, or the huge component of part of what should be spent on capital expenses or capital projects and whatnot, right? So this gap of deficit cannot be met without any form of borrowings, right? There is no clear-cut way that this kind of deficit can be met. So I feel like the government needs to come back to realism and say, we haven't always achieved this large amount of revenues that we are projecting, which gives us even more and more deficits than what is even targeted. So why not let's sit on the table and ensure that whatever is projected still falls in line with the revenue that's happening or the revenue that we have recorded over the years. If I, as an individual, if I'm expecting my salary, I can't plan my salary based off of what I hope to be my promotion next year, or I can't plan my expenses based on what I hope to be my promotion next year. I plan it based on how much I have actualized in the year or how much has been made for me or how much has been projected for me, but not based off of how much I'm assuming to make. I feel like a lot of things are done and they're not being realistic about it.
Now, looking at debt servicing alone is 15.52 trillion naira. I mean, almost half of the projected revenue. Now, does this mean Nigeria is spending more to service debt than to improve lives through services and infrastructure?
So that would be the implication at the most, right? That would be the implication because debt servicing is something that happens always. Like it is a recurrent expenditure. It has to be paid, right? So as much as you are planning for salaries, you are planning to service your debt. And this debt servicing comes with a lot of interest. So the government can do without or under prioritize capital expenditure just to ensure that they meet those debt servicing. And we are seeing debt servicing going all the way to 15.2 trillion. That is more than half of what is projected as the capital expenses. Given the way our current situation is where we don't even get enough revenue, a lot of times the revenues go all the way to service debts and pay salaries, and there's little to nothing that is left for capital expenditure, meaning that you're not even able to achieve half or quarter of what is projected as capital expenditure. So capital infrastructure, in the improvement of citizens' lives and properties, the provisions of social amenities will keep suffering because our debt servicing keeps increasing or keeps getting enlarged.
Okay, now when we look at the breakdown of this budget, you realize that defense receives 5.41 trillion naira. That, of course, is the biggest slice of the budget. Now, given that insecurity has continued despite rising allocations over the years, what concrete results should we expect this time?
So, especially with the rise of insecurity, over and over. I think for the past 10, if not 15 years, defense and security has had the highest allocation sector-wise in the budget. Highest allocation, but yet we're not seeing it translate into credible or into useful results or into impactful results. I don't think it's wrong to give the highest allocation to defense and security. Defense and security is very important. There is no other sector that can function fully if there is no security, if there is no peace within the communities, right? But however, I think we need to go beyond just investing to seeing results. Seeing results. We don't want to see the fact that you're pouring in so much money, but yet there is little result or there's little impact. The hype of kidnapping is going up by the day. The hype of banditry, headsmen, and whatnot is going up by the day. It has to translate into credible results that people can actually hold on to and say, oh, within that budget here or within that budget circle, whatever was invested in can now improve. We can now say there has been some improvement. And the truth is, once you improve on the defense and security, there are other sectors that can follow. Agriculture can bloom because people can now go to their farms, people can now participate actively in producing crops and livestock in the country. Education, people are able to go to school and whatnot. People are able to also access healthcare facilities, right? So getting it right and ensuring that these monies are not just going down the drain, but are being invested properly to ensure that there's result is the way to go.
Thank you, Olu Damilola Onimasmano. I hope I got your name correctly. Thank you for speaking with us tonight.